So I will call to order the March 18th Wenham Select Board meeting.
This recording in progress.
Oh, she's good. This is a one agenda meeting, and it will consist of interviewing our finalists for our permanent town administrator position. It is a Zoom webinar format meeting. It is being recorded. We will not be taking any votes or deliberating at this meeting, so we don't have to worry about roll call votes. And since there are only two of us, I guess it's pretty obvious the two select board members that are present are Catherine Harrison and Gary Cheeseman. Diane Booker will be joining us. So our first candidate is joining us at noon. And so just wanted to chat with, I guess, Gary. So we have questions, right? You have the
I got questions. The preset ones ready to go.
Yeah. So I'll ask people to introduce themselves, and then we talked about possibly, if that's okay, rotating questions 1 through 8 until we run out of time. Is that okay with you?
Sure,
rotating?
That's good.
Do you want to start with, they'll do a 5-minute intro, and then you ask the first question, and then Diane.
All right,
and then
sure.
Me. Okay.
So I got 1, 4, and 7. Got it.
Right. I'm just writing this here. We should have about, I should, I guess, announce to the public that we have had one of our candidates withdraw from this search. So Jason Silva will not be attending today, and there will be no interview. So the time slot from 2 to 3 is actually vacant. There'll be a notification on the screen that the select board is in recess, and we'll turn off our cameras and videos and sound, and we will reconvene at 3 o'clock with our last interviewee. So at noontime, we expect Steve Poulos, at 1 o'clock, Tanya Shallop, and at 3 o'clock, Fred Ventresco. We imagine that these will be about 45-minute long, right? Meeting interviews, so there might be a little recess. Anything else, Gary, that we should talk about organizationally?
No, I think we're all set. We got the questions ready to go, and I think they're a good selection from our larger question bank.
It was, we had a lot to choose from. And I'm just getting a message. I'm going to turn. So there's no chat function on this webinar format, so it'll just be us and the interviewee. We welcome, I guess I'll take this time to say, we welcome public input on each or every one of these candidates, but we ask that you hold your public input until after all of the interviews, and then on the screen we'll be showing our email addresses, so folks can email us and give us any input that they have on any one of the 3 candidates. Looks like Diane,
I'm here,
is in a very bright place. We're happy to have you. Thank you for taking time. The only thing we decided while you were gone, before you came, was that we're going to rotate through the questions through 1 through 8 that hopefully you have. And because you weren't here, we put Gary first.
Perfect.
So
I'd like Gary to go first,
take...
but you know what? Can someone send those to my personal email? Because I can't get on my email, select board email when I'm on the iPad.
Okay.
I know, I'm sorry.
Hopefully, that's okay. Hopefully Michelle can do that. Yes?
Sorry about that, Michelle.
Yeah, no problem. You said the Wenham email?
No, not to the Wenham email. It's to dibuc@comcast.net. I couldn't print them all, which would have been nice. You try to do too many things.
Amen to that. We're going to try to stick to the time schedule as much as we can, so that we don't, we give everybody sort of an equal amount of time. But I am, and I'll try to keep an eye on that. I think Michelle will too, Tom will, but I'm perfectly open. If we're going over, anyone please jump in and say, it's time for the next section. because it's kind of hard to keep track of everything. Steve, I think, so Steve will be coming on at noon, and let us know when you have the questions.
Got him.
Ah, good.
You're the best, okay. Michelle.
So you have 2, 5, right? Gary, Diane, Catherine, Gary, Diane, Catherine.
Okay.
Gary,
I'll know
Diane.
when.
Yeah, right after Gary asks the question. Then we do have some time at the end of the meeting for each of us to go through questions that might be specific to the candidate. And we'll try to end with some closing remarks from the candidate, and we'll, as always, ask the candidate if they have any questions for us. So that will be interesting. And from a time frame, I think at this point, I was just going to tell our candidates that we'll be meeting next week sometime, probably Wednesday, to deliberate, so they kind of have an idea of what the time frame is from today. Okay, I think that's all. So we will just wait for Mr. Poulos. I hope first thing I'm going to have to do is ask him how to pronounce his name. To join us. Oh, here he comes.
Morning.
Good morning.
Oh, good. Almost. Still good morning.
Almost. Yeah.
One more minute.
Okay, we're just about ready to start. For some reason, Michelle, although our recording, oh, that's fine. Our recording secretary is on, her name is on so that she can take minutes for the meeting. So, okay, if you don't mind being 30 seconds early, would you like to be called Steve or Mr.
Yeah, I can think that's, I get called everything, but I think probably whatever rolls off your tongue easiest, or Steve is probably the most common.
Okay, so thank you for coming. Our first interviewer, this is being recorded and televised, so folks will be able to watch it live, just so that you know that. But for the public's sake, our first candidate is Steve Poulos. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So the format, we've got about, the first part of this is really for you to just take a few minutes to talk about yourself, introduce yourself, and then we've got a fairly short, we'll see, set of questions that the select board is going to rotate through, which I guess I'm Catherine Harrison from the select board. Gary Cheeseman is a select board member, and Diane Bucco is our third select board member.
Nice to meet you.
So we will rotate through some questions, and then at the end, we will try very hard. We will definitely allow some time for you to make a statement and ask any questions of us. So that being said, Steve, if you'd like to take a few minutes to introduce yourself and share any opening remarks you have, that'd be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. My name is Steve Poulos. I'm currently the finance director for the town of Marblehead. I've been in municipal finance, town government specifically, since I believe it was 2008 or 9. I left private finance probably back in 2008, shortly after the stock market crash. Up until that point, I held various positions in investment finance that included investment operations manager, where I managed a team of operations analysts, and I also was a trader on both fixed income and equity trading desks. So I feel like that, it certainly had some skills that I've been able to rely upon as I moved into my, essentially my second career. So then a friend of mine, I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do, but a friend of mine was an assessor and had been for many years, and he said, you really should try it. It's a great profession. So not really knowing too much about it. I was young, so I took the position. And, within 6 months, I was hooked. I can be totally honest with you, I didn't know much about local government or what they did until that point. But, I was hooked. And the more I found out about it, the more I wanted to know and the more I wanted to be involved. So that led to, really the next more than a decade of a journey through progression of all local government levels, from, a junior staff member to senior manager. So I've been the guy in the field measuring houses with the building inspector and the assessor. I've been behind the counter in the clerk's office, in the treasury office and the assessor's office, processing abatements, taking checks. I've been out in the field with engineering and DPW, helping them inventory pipes and, coordinate their new GIS spatial analysis tool. And then I've worked my way up through, to chief assessor, a chief procurement officer, deputy director of finance, now the director of finance. And all this really, I think, combined with my leadership experience, really allows me to view things through a very unique lens, where I didn't start, say, like in a manager's office as an assistant or things like that. I know the granular details of most all major functions of municipal government. I understand the daily challenges of them. I have the ability to analyze and assess capacity when taking on new projects, because you want the projects to succeed. And with that, I can serve as a resource and support to staff members. So if there's questions, concerns, I'm a sounding board, bounce things off of me, make it a team environment. Every place I've worked, I have a proven track record of building a positive working environment, even where that environment did not exist when I started. I've always believed in a positive environment where, teamwork and collaboration, I truly believe, produces a much better product in the end. And the customer service that you deliver, they can tell when they walk into a place where people are, happy to be there. And, it just creates a much better process and experience to the public.
Okay, thank you. So Gary, you have the first.
All right, so we'll go into the standard questions here. So Steve, from your experience or observation, what's the single most important characteristic of an effective town administrator?
So I apologize for my voice. My head cold going around the house, and I was lucky enough to wake up with this morning.
Oh, of course.
But, so if I'm clearing my throat, I just apologize ahead of time. Let's see, a single most important characteristic. It's a good question. Probably I'd say ethics, to be an ethical town administrator, right? Because with ethics comes, honesty and truthfulness, right? You don't want to intentionally mislead anybody. An ethical person has integrity. So, right, they have conviction in doing the right thing all the time. Right? They got loyalty. An ethical person would have loyalty. They're loyalty to the people they work with, loyalty to the organization, loyalty to the residents, taxpayers, with a strong devotion to duty. An ethical person would have respect. They'd treat others with respect. They'd treat everyone fairly and with dignity. They'd be law-abiding and, accountable for their actions. They want to steer the ship in a way that's within, the statutory structure that's laid out, and be accountable for their actions, and be able to promote an organization of that has trust and transparency, and a place that people see as there's no smoke and mirrors here. It's everything's above board, and it's just a good organization. Like ethics plays into a lot of areas.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Poulos, yep. What are your personal professional goals for the next 5 years?
It's always a tough one. personal and professional goals, I guess, with me, right? So I have a pretty young family. We have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. We live in Essex. So, for me to be happy, I feel like you need to have, you have to be happy with your personal life, and you have to be happy professional life. Professionally, in 5 years, it's really at this point in my career, I want to be in a place that's challenging and allows me to have a positive impact on things, and in a geographic location that, gives me access to my family, right? And to be able to watch my kids grow up. And then, we have deep roots in Essex. It's a small town. That's a big reason we sought out the small town to live there, is a big reason why I sought out Wenham as, a place to work. So really just, be in a challenging environment that, gives me a good sense of well-being and being able to help people, and then just be the best dad and husband I can be while, enjoying life.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Steve, why do you want to be the town administrator in Wenham?
All right.
Well,
I'll give you a little background. I think that would add some context to this. So back when I interviewed for the position in Danvers, 7, 8, 9 years ago, whatever, I'll have to look at my resume. But the town manager at the time had just taken the job. He came up from Avon, Connecticut. So he was brand new. And he asked me during the interview process, a similar question to that: where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years? And I said, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I go, I love assessing. I'm having a great time, but I could really see myself as I get involved in more and more things, maybe being a town administrator for a small town, just because, I'm kind of like an in the weeds guy, right? So I've always looked at Brendan Zubricki, for example, in Essex, as someone you kind of do it all. You're involved. It's not just delegating tasks. You're involved in the day-to-day. You're all over the place. You're never getting bored because you're always doing something. So within, after I started, nothing was really said about it. Steve never mentioned anything like during the interview or even immediately after the interview. And then a couple months later, he called me in his office and he said, "Hey, did you mean what you said about, wanting to be a town administrator?" I said, "Yeah, of course." So, and really, he is a mentor of me and someone I look up to. And he really set the ball rolling at that point for my education and experience to get to this point. So, I had wanted to be a small town just based on my personality manager, going as far back as that. And it just took this much time to build up the experience and the education to get there, and on top of it, you guys, it's a beautiful town. I mean, we'll, be honest, you had some turbulent times the last couple of years, had some turnover, some things going on. But I mean, look, you still got the GFOA budget, the transparency that, that Citizen GovBiz budget tool you have is amazing. You have an active public, they're engaged, the committees are great, the master plan's rolling out, the government committee that you just had done, and, looking at the restructuring, there's really a lot of great things going on that I'd love to be a part of.
Okay, thank you for that.
All right. Please describe the most difficult experience you have had during your professional career. And looking back, would you have handled it differently? Or what did you learn from this difficult time?
See, I would say the most challenging time of my professional career would be probably the last 18 months or so. So when I came to Marblehead, this was unbeknownst to me when I started, the union was essentially trying to remove the current management, and essentially the union president had issued the statement that, do not help management in any way. The goal is to have them fail. So due to the environment that was created, we were operating across HR, IT, and all finance functions for the town of, including schools, is about 900 employees. So it's relatively large. A lot of employees had left because of the culture. And we were operating at about 25% staffing. So 75% of the positions were vacant. On top of that, nothing as far as like cash reconciliations to the general ledger, cash recs to the bank, cash forecasting had been done for approximately 24 to 28 months. So we were in a really pretty scary position. On top of that, we did not have an accountant. We did not have a treasurer collector. And so in the next 9 months, I hired 8 new staff members, all of which, except for one, had no municipal experience at all. So I really had to call on to my experience, really in the weeds, and train and onboard people to get them up and running. We brought in an independent auditor to do a financial department assessment, which is basically an operational audit, because I wanted to leave no stone unturned. And, something that the principal said to me that, I always tell, and it's impressive, but it's also scary. They said, we've been doing this for a long time. And I can tell you that this is one of the top 3 worst conditions that we've ever encountered, to give you an idea of what we're up against. So over the next 8 months, out of the next 8 months, I, essentially rebuilt, reorganized, trained, restructured. I fostered working relationships with the unions, as well as employees, disgruntled employees that were still there. We were really able to turn over a new leaf. And then as things started to get, we started to kind of hit our stride a little bit. The town manager left abruptly right in the middle of town meeting and budget season, which we're still in right now, where I had to, I continued to steer the ship through that direction. And they have since got an interim town manager where I've been able to help the transition with him. So as far as things that I learned from that is, that trust and respect go a long way. Honesty is paramount. Some of the issues stemmed from things that were said, whether they were said to, alleviate certain stresses at the time that didn't come to fruition. And that stressed the relationships, really, really forever. So I'm a firm believer in just being upfront with everybody in the beginning. And also that there is, you hear it, there's no I in team. Without the people that came on and the existing staff that we were able to rally, I mean, we wouldn't have survived. I mean, we never missed a payroll check. We didn't miss the audit. We didn't miss a free cash submission. Our bills went out on estimated third quarter bills. It all took place, and that's because of everybody chipping in. Another thing I really found is that, I used to weigh technical ability in the hiring process. And after coming up from this, right, this is a tough market to hire people in. And after coming out of that, I see that, I've kind of reprioritized it. I was hiring on character and hoping that they'd, jump in and take control. And they did, right? Most of the people had, not to say that, they had some good skills that would transition, but municipal government can be a unique beast. And, so I think character, you hire the right person and build the right team, and you can pretty much do anything.
Thank you. Please describe in detail the process you will use to establish a working relationship with town employees and what standards you hold yourself to when working together.
Well, I think in this, I have a pretty unique situation in that I have very strong existing working relationships with several of your key staff members. By the way, very lucky to have them. They're all stars. But other than that, again, going back to trust. I work hard to establish trust. I know that trust is a two-way street. You want to develop a working relationship so that you can both trust each other. It's built on honesty. And I also think that in order to build collaboration, teamwork, again, honesty, open communication is really just bringing everybody together in that collaborative, make it an environment where, it's okay to make a mistake and you learn from your mistake and everybody's helping out. in that, you know, if you have an idea, like definitely say it. There's 10 ways to skin a cat. You know, if you like to do it this way for whatever reason, you know, well, we have a starting point and an end point. How it gets done in the middle isn't really that important as long as the end result is great. And you want to take the ownership of that, like definitely go for it. So, you know, and then I'm also a fan of weekly meetings, even if they're only 20 minutes or a half hour with each person, keeps you in touch, keeps the conversation going. You know, a lot of positions are on the road a lot, or I know when you guys are regionalized, so you're splitting staff amongst two communities. So I think staying in touch is very important. And I've always, you know, in Danvers, in here now, I always do like a once a month breakfast or lunch or something. I buy lunch for everybody and we just kind of sit around and chat. And, you know, I can say that just about every person I've ever worked with in my career, and I say this honestly, I, you know, still maintain a relationship and contact with them, you know, to this day in some regard, whether, you know, I'm asking them questions and they're helping me out, you know, and they're asking me questions and I'm helping them out. You know, it's just a good way to do things.
Thank you.
Thanks. So this is a question. What does the term customer service mean to you? And how does that particularly apply in, you know, municipal government?
That's a good question. I actually say this during just about every hiring interview. When I'm hiring, I stress the point that, you know, if you haven't been in municipal government before, you need to know that it's a service business, number one, right? We are in the service business, regardless of what you're coming to do. If you enter data in Excel all day long, and you never see the public, your product is still impacting the public. We are a service business. 80% of our budget is people related, right? So customer service is paramount, right? So you want to keep the customer and taxpayer happy. I always try and promote going above and beyond, because when people come to town hall, generally it's not for a good thing, right? They have to pay a bill, or something got mixed up, or, you know, they can't find some piece of information and people have been giving them the runaround. And I always say, you know, try to make it a pleasant experience, you know, so that they walk out of here and be like, you know, that wasn't that bad. You know, nobody wants to pay the bill, but you know what, you know, that was really nice, or that was funny, or, you know what I mean? Something like that. That's kind of how, and then, you know, like, and even the vocal, I'll give you a story, the vocal minority, right? So we had an individual who had a decade-old long fight with my predecessor, and, you know, very smart guy, but he had just clogged the works for this individual for years and years and years. And we met, you know what, and I just said, you know, let's just put it all on the back burner. Respectful. I found common ground. I was transparency, just show that you're knowledgeable and you care, understand their position. And, you know, we talked it out. I mean, he ended up being one of my biggest supporters, because I just gave him the time. If you know, I'm always, hey, you want to get in the weeds, right? You want to get in the weeds and you want to understand the process. I will go as deep as anybody wants to go. You know, usually they end up being like, oh, all right, that's enough. That's enough. You know, understand the process. There's, like I said before, there's no smoke and mirrors. There's a reason why we're methodical in our actions. It's well thought out. We document and support everything we do. And, you know, it's as simple as that. And I want people to understand, and I want to educate them in the process.
Great, thanks.
So we found in Wenham that many things come along one time, but don't repeat themselves. Could you provide examples of a standalone project that you've managed while in municipal service?
Let's see. Yeah, sure. I mean, if I understand the question correctly, I undertook the task of researching and implementing GIS for Bedford, Danvers, and Marblehead for the first time in each of those communities. You know, we had override initiatives that I provided analysis on and helped with educational seminars and taxpayer coordination and informational reach outs. We just did a new data center here, so we were all on Windows 7 machines, so we didn't have any security patches. We were on an old version of Exchange, Microsoft Exchange server. I went to O365. We have a 3-node virtualized data center, state of the art. Really, basically before what we replaced was we had about 10 old desktops that were each one was duplicated, had been repurposed into a server. HR, we just recently implemented we had 2 comp and class studies done. So completely regrading and applying new salary spreads to all union and non-union staff. So that affected about 200 employees. So I was able to come up with, what was deemed to be a fair implementation method to make sure that everybody was moved into this new comp and class fairly and equitably. We put together, I guess, another good example of a one-time project are these the federal funds that are coming in with related to CARES and ARPA, FEMA. Those are all. Most recently, we did a community survey to outreach to the public to get feedback on how to best use ARPA funds to impact the largest portion of the tax base that we could. And we've come up with algorithms and things in the background to weight, internal data, external data, and to come up with a real data-driven approach of how to spend the money so that, when the questions come up, and they will, well, why did you do this over that? It's like you can actually rely on, a hard data-driven approach and being like, there's no bias. It was just this would impact the most people. And this is what the most people wanted. So I thought that was a pretty good way to go about that. Is that kind of what the question was? Just projects?
Yes,
like
I think,
that?
yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what do you view as the role as the town administrator in Wenham?
In Wenham?
Yes.
Well, I think that the town administrator is, obviously he's the chief executive officer in a way. And, his job is to really to maintain the integrity of the town, maintain the good customer service that we talked about, be the face of the town, be trustworthy, someone that people can approach and ask questions. Again, I'll bring up Brendan Zubricki again, just because I've worked with him a decent amount, just on several committees in Essex, and his ability to, be a non-biased professional to all opinions and help them through the government process, whether it's, select board meetings, town meeting, getting their own warrant article, whatever it may be, the permitting process, he is there and he's professional and he's just a great guy. And that's something, that I try to emulate. And really, you're going to have to be able to foster strong relationships, both internally and externally. We want to build a culture that's, built around teamwork and collaboration. I also believe work should be fun. So, have a little fun while we do it. Serve as a resource, make sure the department heads are getting what they need, or really all staff, make sure their needs are met, make sure they're getting the training they need, make sure they have the resources they need to get the job done. You got some really talented people there, and you want to make sure that they have what they need to do a great job in their specialized areas. And it'd also be looking to seek to identify, what the community's vision is, like what the community themselves want. I know you're putting together a master plan for land use, but also just strategic direction as far as economic development. And, whatever the town wants, so open space, and just help identify that and help move them in the path to accomplish it is really what I see the role of the TA in Wenham.
Great. So that ends our formal question. Well, the standard questions. We have about 10 minutes where we're going to ad lib, I guess, a little bit, questions that we think may be more specific to what we've heard today or what we've read in your resume. We're just going to take turns doing that. And Gary, do you want to start since we've been doing it in that rotation?
So I'd be interested in hearing, what interactions you've had with the select board in Danvers and Marblehead.
Yep, I have interactions with the select board with some relative frequency, right? So it's particularly during budget season, we meet with the selectmen departments and then report to the select board. And I attend probably a meeting a month. They meet every other month, but if for some reason or another, I am, whether it's union negotiations, costing, update on contract services for IT or HR, that comp and class study implementation, costs associated with the implementation, the ARPA funds. I'm on a number of committees that, Green Marblehead, the ARPA committee, pension board, all that have, members of the select board on it. And, so I'm meeting with, and the same with Danvers, obviously got the classification hearing, but Steve, the town manager, was big on inclusion. So he was always had all his managers included in all initiatives. So we spent probably more face time with the board than you would see typically.
Thank you.
Diane, do you want to go next?
Oh, I do. So you had mentioned that one of the most difficult experiences you had were the past few months here in Marblehead with the state of the finance office. I call it the finance office, treasurer, accountant, et cetera. And that you worked really hard with a lot of people to pull it together, bringing in new people. And do you feel as if you've cleaned up that office? And, which I'm going to assume you're going to say yes, but do you feel there's more projects to be done there?
Well, you're right. Yes, I do feel like I've cleaned it up a lot, but no, it's not done. There's still more to be done. But with that said, I can say that I am proud in the condition that it is in now to hand it over. If this was 6 months or 8 months ago, I wouldn't be in front of you today because the job wasn't done, right? I could not in good conscience have left at that point. It was, 100 hours a week, hyper-focused. It really showed, my heart was in it. And now it's at a point where we're staffed, we're having IT upgrades, people are in new comp and class, so they're getting paid well, or they have pathways to the 50th percentile of our peer communities. We've made massive strides. And unfortunately, I would like, probably it'd be ideal to be able to stay for another year and a half or a couple of years, but, unfortunately, I can't time when opportunities present themselves. And, this is just like the perfect opportunity. And like I said, small town manager is what I quoted back in 2007. And I can be quoted on that. And, it's just kind of like the perfect timing. You could hire somebody and they'd finish their career here in 20 years before something like that opened up again. So it was just, when it opened, I just had to take the shot.
Thank you.
Yep.
So my question has to do with sort of day-to-day activities. It's pretty clear from, the answers to the questions that we've asked already that you have familiarity with a lot of different functions of town government. But my understanding is that most of your day-to-day work is in finance. Wenham is a small town, and our town administrator gets involved, hands-on involved in a lot of things, in addition to just, obviously to, the higher level things. So can you share a little bit about what any sort of hands-on experience or direct experience you've had with things like even, directly involved, or the primary person involved with negotiations or HR or annual town meeting prep, things that are not just the finance aspects of them, but the actual other things.
Yep. Like I said, IT, when I say IT and HR, just so you understand, Marblehead I'm also the IT director, and I'm also the HR manager. So, and with that, we have no IT staff, and we have only one benefits coordinator with HR. So I'm heavily involved on all of that. I was one of two key negotiators for all three collective bargaining agreements that were settled over the past year and a half. We're currently negotiating and settling another one. We work with cable TV, where I work with electric light. We're working to lower the carbon footprint and put green initiatives in place for ways to promote energy efficient vehicles and things of that nature. We're currently working to restructure the rate to encourage energy usage and off hours. So I'm really involved, and the ARPA is the same thing. That was really more of it's finance in the end, but it's more of a public outreach. We're having educational meetings with the public, letting them know what can be done, what do they want out of it. And also I've worked a lot with DPW in police and water and sewer as they're getting ready. So I have a background in GIS. So they're just kind of embracing that technology now here. So I've been in the weeds a lot with that. And, the MS4 grant, Chapter 90, pavement management. So, we're getting all that, really understanding the fundamentals of all of that and how it works together, and coming up with active layers so that we can manage our pavement and make best use of these monies. And this is similar with water and sewer, where, we're helping with inventorying the pipes and layers and depth and all of that with the GIS, and coming up with a way to, to better serve the public, leveraging technology.
Thank you. We have a couple of minutes. I think we may be able to make one more round of individual questions, or it doesn't have to be everyone, but if anyone has any other questions specific, we can ask them, or we can turn it over to Steve and see if he has any questions for us. So Gary or Diane, do you have any further questions you'd like to specifically ask at this point, or are you all set for now?
I think I'm all set.
I could ask a question.
Okay.
What was my question? My question was about how you deal with an employee perhaps that's not following the teamwork, morale, maybe causing some issues, difficult to work with, but is, on staff.
Well, actually, without using names, I could give you a recent example of that.
Don't use names.
As I said, yeah, right.
That would be bad. That would be bad.
So, right, I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So my first course of action is always just calling them in the office and just, having just a casual conversation, just, what's going on. I'm noticing this, I'm noticing that, see where they're coming from. Maybe they have a point, I approach every situation as a learning opportunity. Could be something you're doing to them unintentionally. That wasn't the case, but I just want to go into every situation with an open mind and not immediately jump to this person is trying to sabotage the operations. Try to find common ground, try to see it through the other person's eyes. But then, at the end of the day, make it known that, that's not the type of culture you're trying to create here, and that it's impacting, it's not only impacting their work quality, it's impacting the work quality of everybody else, because they're, bringing them down, they're bringing the morale down. And I try to be really clear about that, and how important it is to, have not everybody has a good day every day. Sometimes you have bad days, and that's fine. But generally, we want this to be a fun place to come to work. And if you're going to be here, it disrupts that flow. So really it's just working together. And I was actually successful. We had some really good talks, me and this other person, and, she didn't like the way I did some things. She thought I could have communicated better with some of the things I was implementing at the time. So I said, yep, that's fair. And I've really worked hard to be even more transparent. And things have seemed to turn around. Again, that'll remain to be seen over the long term, but in the short term, I can see a significant improvement.
Thanks.
Yep.
So, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah, I got a couple questions if
Okay.
we have time.
We do. We have a few minutes left, so
okay.
Feel free.
I guess what do you think is the biggest challenge the candidate, the person you select, is going to face in the first month or so?
Want to each take a quick stab at that? I bet the three of us each would have something different to say. Take a 30 seconds to. Okay.
I think your first challenge is going to be to fill out the rest of the staff through hiring, and then to pick up on some projects that need to get going. We have the Route 1A state rebuild facing us. I liked your plan for ARPA. We're going to have to determine that in town, and there's other probably one-time off projects that we need to address.
Great, thank you.
Diane, you want to go or you want me to go?
You can go. I don't really have anything to add.
Okay. I think initially it's going to be regaining or readdressing the stability issues to kind of stabilize the situation in town, to have the folks internally and the townspeople understand that our town administrator is a person who's here to work together for a while. And we have had some changeover. So I think initially there'll be some more internal issues. We have a great staff. I don't want to be misunderstood. The staff that is here is amazing, and you've said that you know some of them, so you know that. And everybody works really hard and wants to work together. But I think everyone would like to feel like, okay, this is it. We're moving forward, and we're going to move forward together as a team. So establishing that, I think, is going to be important. And to Gary's point, I think the other thing is, we have an excellent interim town administrator who's been able to take care of a lot of things, but we do have a fair amount of unfinished business. So you'd be picking up and trying to understand where some projects or issues are, and then moving them forward. And that's going to be a little bit of a challenge because there may not be that many people around who have the history with those projects. So I guess that's what I think.
And just to that, to add to, I mean, it's similar to what is here. It's just, all the institutional knowledge was gone for all practical standpoint. So it was a lot of rebuilding and recreating, and just being resourceful. I mean, nobody knows all the answers, but knowing where to go to get the answers, and who to ask, and who to talk to, and network. You can do good things.
Okay. Other questions for us?
Just one more. If you could, what would you say the successful candidate, if you had to give name a quality or two that they possessed, what would it be for the successful candidate?
I think it's going to be a person who is very people-oriented, very transparent, very team-oriented. Really, what we find in Wenham a lot with town administrators is they come to Wenham thinking, oh, this is a little town, can't be too complicated. I'll just, I got some stuff to do in my office. And they find that, there's not a lot of staff. Even when we're fully staffed, there's not a lot of staff. There's a lot of hands-on, literally day-to-day, taking phone calls, talking to residents, writing out grants, things like that. So I think that the ability to handle those kinds of things is going to be important. If that answers your question at all.
Yeah, it does. Just writing the notes.
Sure. Gary or Diane, do you have anything you want to add to that?
I would say I think we're looking for a team leader, I think we've got very good staff, got to make a couple more hires, but I think looking for someone that will really pull it all together and move forward after some turbulent times here.
And I would just add a hard worker is, I think was said, and someone with what you said really was integrity all around.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We have just a minute or two. I'll let you give a last minute statement, but I just wanted to let you know from our process point of view, obviously we're anxious to have a person on board to start this new growth and to bring that experience. So we're interviewing all of the finalists today, and next week at some point, don't put this in ink, but I'm pretty sure on Wednesday night, we're going to be meeting as a select board and deliberating on what we think about the candidates. And if we're fortunate enough, we'll be choosing a candidate. At that point, anybody that we appoint is of course subject to background checks and contract negotiations and that person's, time that they would have to give to their, to their present employer in terms of that. So that's where our sort of process is and the timing that we can expect. And of course, we'll be in touch at every step of the way as we move through it. So we've got 2 minutes. Anything last minute you'd like to say?
Yeah, a few things. But first, before I go into my closing remarks, is there anything I touched on today or any questions that you asked that you felt, you have some reservations about the answers or, so you'd like some follow-up to that, you'd like me to address now?
I'm fine. I'm good. I think you did a good job answering the questions.
Yes.
You understood the questions.
All right. So I guess in closing, if I could just have, probably 90 seconds or so. And my closing remarks would be, I just want to say that, I have deep roots in this area. I went to school up here. I went in Manchester, moved my family back up here probably 7 or 8 years ago. And I said, this kind of all plays into my long-term plan that I laid out, 8 or 9 years ago when I was interviewing for Danvers. So, this is a long-term move for me that I feel that I can be the stability and continuity that you're looking at. I'm not the type of person that bounces around. And I believe, that I've showed that I have integrity and that my persistence is one of my great strengths. I work extremely hard and, I stick with things when they get tough. Not if I walk into something that, is just a total disaster. If anything, it makes me dig in harder, not run away. So, and I'm very aware of the small challenges that communities face. It's, some of those challenges are things that draw me to them because, right, like people think like, oh, like you said, a small town, it's just a sleepy little community. They just do, whatever, a couple hours in their office, come and go. The fact of the matter is, particularly with Proposition 2.5 and the small tax base, is a certain critical mass that communities all over the state have to maintain. And that critical mass is very difficult for a small community because you still need DPW, you still need schooling. The staffing is smaller, yes, but it's not. If you half the size community, it's not half the size, right? But you're dealing with, but you have less, but you have half the money effectively, right?
Right.
So I like the fact that with that comes complex planning. You have to be really good stewards of the taxpayers' money. You got to be calculated in all your moves. And there's a high percentage of population involvement. And I like that because you can make those data-driven decisions and get a lot of feedback. It's even just, 10 people on a committee is such a larger percentage of the greater population than if you had like 10 people on the committee in the city of Lowell, right? It's just, hardly even a drop in the bucket. So all that, excites me about a small town. And I totally understand that a small town manager is not one of even like a Danvers where you have a significant amount of staff to delegate and manage projects. That is really on the administrator. And, you know, that's kind of my nature, my personality. So I like that. That's why I seek out a small town. But, you know, with that, I just want to say thank you for your time. You know, I really appreciate being able to apply for this opportunity. It's something that I'm really excited about. And, you know, just appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, Steve. We will be in touch.
All right. Have a good one.
Okay.
Oh, is it over? Am I going? Sorry.
Yeah, you're done. You're done. You're done for now. Yes.
All right.
And you did it in perfect timing. Thank you so much. See you later.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. So for the board, we have a 15-minute recess where I think we can mute, don't log out. Who knows what'll happen, but we can mute ourselves and turn off our cameras, or maybe I think we can do that for ourselves, but plan to be back at just before 1 for our next candidate. There's going to be a screen, I think, that will probably be shared that says that we're on recess. So we got a break, about a 10-minute break. Just make sure we'll get back here on time for the next folk. So I'm going to say I think that we can mute, so people understand that we're not.
You're muted.
And we'll see everyone back here a few minutes before 1. I guess
Next time, Michelle will have some background music going on the interview.
There you go, some elevator music, right?
All right.
All right. See you at 1. Bye-bye.
Hey, Catherine.
Yeah.
Can you hear my chair squeaking when I move around?
Not until you just pointed it out.
Okay. I should probably switch the chair. I don't know. No, it's just like,
Of course.
Now it seems really loud.
Hopefully I'll.
So Catherine and I have come up with a new question too, is what experience do you have with the berserk turkeys that have returned to Pleasant Street?
Oh my gosh, I almost had a collision with them the other day. I literally almost ran them over, and then they proceeded to peck at the side of my car.
Yeah.
It's really, they're like 6 of them, and they're as tall as my car. The front of
Addison Gilbert Hospital, they're all over the parking lot too. People
crazy.
get stuck in their cars.
I know, we have to warn our new TA about that.
Yeah.
So it looks like our candidate is ready or on. There she is.
Good afternoon.
Good
Turkeys.
afternoon.
I don't have any experience, but I've listened to This American Life about the berserker turkeys. We've got a few over here. Hi. Good afternoon.
We'll give you a lesson in that if you end up here. So our next finalist is Tanya Shalop. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yep, Tanya Shalop. Exactly. Yes. Thank you.
And do you mind? Would you like us to call you Tanya or Ms.
Tanya would
Shalop?
be great.
Okay.
Yeah, Tanya.
So on this end, we have our select board, which is made up of 3 people: myself, Catherine Harrison, and Gary Cheeseman, who I think will be obvious, and Diane Bucco.
Hi, Diane.
So thank you for joining us today. We have a little bit of a process that we're going to follow. We're going to start with just a few minutes of you being able to share with us a little bit about yourself. We do have a set of questions that we'll rotate through, that we're asking each of the candidates the same questions. And at the end of that, hopefully we will have some time to ask some questions that may come up by the board members that are specific to you. And of course, we'd like to end with you making a statement, and also being sure that you have some time to ask us any questions that you have. So we have about 45 minutes altogether. I won't take too much time, the preamble here, except to say that I think I need to mention to everyone that this interview is being recorded. It is a Zoom interview. And so I just wanted to let you know, Tanya, that, and anyone else who may have joined in the meantime, that we will be recording this. And it actually is also being broadcast live for our viewers. Okay, so please, if you would share just a little bit about yourself and how you came to this point. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to meet all of you and be here, especially from the comfort of my own office here. So as we mentioned, my name's Tanya Shalop. By way of relevant experience to what we're doing today, my background is, my educational background is a little bit varied. I do have a JD and am a PhD candidate, although that's pretty much in the past. And unless in my retirement, I decide I want to go and finish this PhD in public policy from UMass Boston, which, so I spent a little time in my life as a professional student, I guess you could say. But since then, I've been working for the Edward J. Collins Jr. Center for Public Management. That's out of UMass Boston. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but we do a lot of consulting for cities and towns all around the state, which has been fantastic because it really has allowed me to see operations, everything from HR to fire departments, you name it, charter. I've been doing charter work for them as well. So all sorts of projects all around the state. I've been doing that work. Then I did a stint for about 3 years in Middleton, which is, as we know, a nearby town, which has some connections to Wenham here. As the assistant town administrator and HR director, I was their first HR director there, which was challenging, but also really rewarding to put things in place to make things run more smoothly. So lots of experience with unions and hiring and discipline and things like that, but also all sorts of things that came with being an assistant town administrator, operation wise. So there were times when I was the interim COA director and everything in between. I left Middleton for a short little stint in Swampscott, which I'll just say, as their HR director for schools in the town, which wasn't a good fit. I found out very quickly that it wasn't a good match, and was lucky enough to then go back to the Collins Center, where I've been ever since, as an associate, doing a lot of work. I'm doing an ALS study for Woburn right now, as well as some HR work in Lawrence, and everything to the smallest town like Paxton, which has been great. So that's my background in terms of municipal government. I live in Salem. I'm a member of the Traffic and Parking Commission. I'm a chair of the Traffic and Parking Commission in Salem, which has been, we're not everyone's favorite people, but also gives me an insight to being on the other side of things, and public comments, et cetera, as those come. And I'll mention before, my local government career, I had another varied career as a radio DJ. So that right after college, that's what I did, moving up to Vermont and working around here. So I love music. I love everything to do with that. That's certainly one of my hobbies in my spare time. Also love gardening, history. We live in a 1787 home here in Salem. I live with my husband. He's a union rep for SAG-AFTRA, so he knows all about all the films and TV that he's often on all those sets all around New England. And our stepson, who is a college student, but is spending this week with us because it is spring break. So if he passes in the background, you'll know what's happening there. So that's a little bit about me. I'm happy to expand more, but it really is a pleasure just to talk to you about this position in Wenham, which is intriguing to me because obviously, I did the map. It's 17 minutes from my house. So, it's very appealing that we're essentially neighbors. I love working, for the most part in a small town. There are challenges, but there is so much to like. There's so much of an opportunity to really get to know all the employees, get to know residents, get to know obviously board and commission members, and really work closely with them. So there's a real appeal there. So thank you. So thank you for having me today. So that's me.
Great. Thank you. So we'll start with our standard questions, and we've been rotating, and hopefully we're happy with the way we've been rotating. If so, Gary has the first question for you.
All right. Well, nice to meet you. But first question is, from your experience or observation, what do you think is the single most important characteristic of a town administrator?
Oh, it's hard to say one. Let's be honest there, but I'm a firm believer. My approach is a collaborative approach. So I think that encompasses a lot. Hopefully, I get to put a lot of things into that approach. I love to work with people. I really believe in putting the right people in the right positions and giving them the right training and support and working collaboratively with them in terms of the staff. Obviously, I come from an HR background, so that's always forefront on my mind. So collaborating with the staff, making sure, I know what their needs are, figuring out how to be that go-between between the board or any other relevant entities and the staff, and being collaborative in that sense. So being collaborative with the board is obviously of huge importance. And I think that's one of the things I would love to ask you about is the sort of relationship that you think would work best with the board and your town administrator. And then that collaboration really extends the school system. Obviously, that's such a huge factor in Wenham, and even to our state reps and state senators, to surrounding cities and towns. It's great. I know Joe and I like Hamilton a lot, so I would really welcome the opportunity to work closely with him. So I really think that collaboration is important. Obviously, there's plenty of other important things, but that encompasses a lot.
Great. Hi, I'm Diana.
Hi, great to meet you.
What
Diana.
are your personal and/or professional goals for the next 5 years?
That's an interesting question that I've been discussing with my husband a lot lately, because what do I want to do with my life every day is a thing, and I'm not going to tell you I know the exact answer, but I do love the work of small town government. It has been an aspiration of mine to be a town administrator, so this seems like potentially a great fit, although I want to know more if it really is a great fit. So I'd love, and I'm staying in Salem. When we bought our house, we were like, I don't mind if I die in this house. This house is wonderful. So I'm staying put, physically where I am. And I would love, I'm working in local government. I love it. I care about it. And so, there's no reason, if it wasn't a good fit, that I would love to be in Wenham.
Okay, so thank you for that. And I think a segue sort of that you've had an assistant town administrator job and had some work with the Collins Center, which we have worked with actually, agent classification studies and a few other things. So we have familiarity with the kind of things that you do. But what in particular makes you want to be a town administrator in Wenham?
Yeah, I mean, that's a few questions in one. But I will say, I love the dynamic nature of local government. I love that it's really, it's people's lives, are so much of it is encompassed in what is happening in local government. So how wonderful to be a big part of that. I love the democratic process. Like I'm a real believer in, what in government, in local government, and what it means to people's lives. I love that it's everything from their police and ambulance service, to the streets, to the library, to, schools. And I realize that's tangential, but I just love that it affects people's lives so directly. And that means that you never know what's going to come up on a day-to-day basis. There's certainly things that come up regularly and are important, but you never know sort of what's going to walk in the door. And I love that. I love that dynamic nature. I do think I have a problem-solving personality, collaborative, but then, okay, how do we fix this? How do we make it better? How do we listen to people and the needs and the wants of the town? I loved reading. I think in 2020 you did a survey of the town. I was digging into that just to see, the perspective of people in Wenham and what they really loved about the town and what they'd love to see in the future. So, that's what I really love. I love the character of the North Shore. So Wenham is a, true North Shore town. Yes. I mean, I'd love to get to know it more. I'm not going to say I know everything about Wenham, but I do know a lot about the North Shore generally. And I think it's a beautiful place. I think, it's really true. What people, I know some lovely people who live in Wenham. So when people say it's a friendly place, I absolutely believe that. And so there's a lot that's of interest to me there.
Great, thank you for that. Oh,
so could you, could you describe for us the most difficult experience you've had in your professional career, and where would you second guess it, or what did you learn from that experience?
Okay, that's a good question, Gary. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to pick out the most difficult. I think, as someone being involved in human resources, there's a lot of difficult issues. And the thing that immediately popped to mind is something I can't even tell you exactly about, because it was a human resources issue. And it involved a major investigation, which I enjoy doing. Obviously I went to law school. There's part of me that loves to, find things out and talk to people and get to the bottom of things. But so often it's a human relationship issue. There can be things that are certainly more serious than that. But so often it's trying to figure out, how can we move forward as an organization have people work together, especially, when something has happened in the past. And then how can you envision a future that's really positive and collaborative, and if necessary, and if there were bad actors or bad apples, do what was necessary in the meantime, but then how to really move forward in a collaborative, positive way. So, as I look back, I got this incident in mind, and as I look back on it, did I do that perfectly? No, that's, like I might have, stepped on someone's toes or said the wrong thing. But I do think the thing that I'm most proud about when I think back on that is that I was able to at least involve the right people and get to a good solution at the end, even though it was an ongoing challenge to a working environment afterwards. But looking back, I am happy with the outcome of that, and I would do some things differently. But overall, I'm pretty happy. So excuse my vagueness. I realized that I have this all in my head, and I was like, make sure you don't, I don't want to reveal certain things there. But you can rest assured that was challenging, Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Sorry. I don't remember this. Sorry.
Okay. It's only an hour ago, Dan.
I know. Please describe in detail the process you will use to establish a working relationship with town employees, and what standards would you hold yourself to when working as a group, as a team?
Oh, okay. That's great. That would be one of my favorite things I would think about taking on this job, is really meeting the employees, meeting them when I first got in there, because obviously it's going to take a while to establish trust. I think, especially given all the circumstances that Wenham has gone through in the past, for people to feel comfortable and trust me. But the easiest thing to say is I would talk with them. I would want to go to where they work. I would want to find out what they do. I would love to know a little more about them, how long they've been with the town, what's going well, what isn't going well. And I would also want to reassure people that I'm not coming in here to make changes right off the bat, right? What's working is working. And I'm the biggest thing is to keep it working. Things that are working well, to keep them working well. So a big issue would be making sure that they felt comfortable with me, that they trusted me, that I'm not going to come and upset the apple cart, and I want to listen to them as to things that we might improve in the future. So I would love, regular department head meetings is a big deal to me, because I love the exchange of information, and to make sure that people know each other and are able to work collaboratively. There's so many opportunities for, department heads to work across departments, and to make sure that people felt comfortable coming to me. I know that takes some time, with their problems, with their issues, with their ideas for improvements in the future. So it really would be me going to all of the departments, meeting the employees, taking that time to be there and to talk to them, and that takes a while. I wouldn't expect immediate results. It takes consistency, and it takes availability to get to a place. And then I'd also want to be true to my word. If I told them I was going to do something, I want to make sure I do it. I want to tell them if something that they're asking for is unreasonable, or we'd have to figure out a different way to do it. So I also want to make sure that they could trust me in that regard. And the same holds true, not just for employees, but with board members, boards, commissions, the school department, et cetera. I would want to do a similar thing.
Thank you.
So what does the term customer service mean to you in the context of, working in a small town?
That's interesting, because the word I love to think of it as constituent services, because customer service is fine and good, but I feel like it's really a different relationship than just purely customer and, provider or something like that. So I love constituents. That was a big factor of what I did in Middleton. I'd be the first one to be answering the phone or what have you, especially with more complicated issues. So what it means to me is being available, having multiple ways that people can contact you. So both people that want to contact you, and then we have the output of information on the other side, but having multiple ways that people can contact you. I live in reality. I know not everybody, has apps or is comfortable. Some people are comfortable picking up the phone. Some people are comfortable coming in person. Some people love email. So just making sure that, I'm available, my staff would be available in a variety of ways. And then to really, do our best to respond always in a kind way, even if it's an answer people don't want to hear. And then just, in terms of, when they're looking for information or a response from you. And then, things like, okay, if there's an issue with a tree, making sure that gets to the right place, making sure that, I really understand and the staff understands how things should function best. And then in terms of external communications, it was interesting because I think that survey that you did had some great ideas about how people wanted to receive information. It seemed like email was very popular, but obviously it's important in the same sense to keep up the web page. If there needs to be flyers for certain things, there needs to be flyers, signboards, whatever things are at your disposal. Although it's a lot of, it is a lot of work. So I want to, make sure that that's factored in to everything. And I'll mention, in terms of my strengths, that plays to my strengths, but are some people probably better at some of these, especially newer technologies? It's certainly possible, but I think that's something that, I try and work on keeping up to date, especially as now younger people are using things that I've got to learn myself. So I guess your question was, customer service. I would expect to all of the staff to be courteous. Like that's part of their job. But I would also expect people to treat the staff with respect. I don't have a high tolerance for people coming in and being belligerent. So at the same point in time, respecting the staff a lot in terms of, what they're dealing with. But, for regular interactions, being courteous, being true to your word, getting back to people in a timely manner, that's key.
Great. Thank you for that.
You provide us an example of a standalone project that you took from initiation to completion?
Sure. There are a lot. I'll mention one thing, but then I want to turn to another because I wish I had been able to see this to completion. When I was in Middleton, I was one of the people that helped start up this regional IT collaborative that I know Wenham is part of. That was really exciting to me because the problem of IT in small towns is such a major issue. It's so fraught with complexity and, and it's hard for people who aren't IT specialists to really know how to navigate all of that. So that was something that I at least had brought along for a few years, but then had to pass off. So that was just something that touched Wenham that I was thinking about that I wish, and who knows what the future holds. But I think a lot of the projects that I do for the Collins Center sort of fit into this category. I love being able, Catherine, you had mentioned like a class and comp study, to be able to start with a city or town. I'm doing some of those right now, to start with the city and town. Okay, why are we doing this? It might even start before then. Okay, what are grant opportunities that you could utilize in order to get this done? So sometimes we work with cities and towns to say, oh, there's a best practice grant or community compact grant that could really help you do what you want to do. So for a class and comp, it might even start that early, and then really working with, whether it's the HR director, a town administrator, et cetera, to really sit down, talk about what they want, why they want to do it, how we're going to accomplish it. Then I'm lucky enough to be able to interview a lot of town employees, in that sort of case, which is terrific. I love getting their feedback. Sometimes it's a little frustrating because I can't solve all their problems. I'm only there for one thing. But it's also, it's been such a good education for me to talk to people in various cities and towns and see how how their structure works, what they're doing in their departments, and then take that back, do the nuts and bolts of a survey with other cities and towns to find out what their pay scales are, and then bring that all back together, put it together in a package for the town that I'm working with, and then have that be able to be implemented, which is great because I know it's a real benefit to the employees themselves, to management of the town, because so many of these things are fraught. And if you haven't updated things can get all out of whack. And then that really causes some internal issues. So that really feels good when I'm able to hand off something like that to one of my clients. So that type of thing is I enjoy.
Thank you.
And so what do you view as the role of the town administrator in the town of Wenham?
Oh, what makes it distinct in the town of Wenham? I mean, obviously, the first and foremost, it's carrying out, it's the administrative arm of the Board of Selectmen. It's the day-to-day, or the Select Board. Excuse me. I should make sure I get that right. We changed it. We changed it in Middleton. I love it. I love the change. So it really is to understand what the select board wants, and hopefully the select board also has the pulse of the town, and to carry that out. Now there are plenty of day-to-day issues, obviously, and huge overarching issues, such as the budget really being one of the main drivers of the budget, also town meeting, and then the day-to-day operations of the town, working with department heads. It sounds like there's big elements of human resources, procurement, finance, and all sorts of things built in there. But I really do think it is that the conduit between the select board and the day-to-day. So it's figuring out what needs to happen and making it happen, and then bringing to the select board what is happening on the ground, and finding out where we go from there.
Okay, so I think that's the end of our standard questions, but we've built in a few minutes for each of the select board members to ask a question or two of you, Tanya, that are specific to you, things that may have come to our minds during the interview that specifically based on something that you said or something we wanted to delve into a little bit more. So we'll take a couple of minutes to do that. Gary, would you like to start? Or Diane?
Very well. So just a question about what involvement did you have in the budget preparation and the town meeting cycle?
Sure. I like to say I probably sat third chair on the budget in Middleton. And that meant, let's be honest, that so much of the driver of the budget is personnel costs. So I really feel that that's where I added the most to the budget process, but I was in on all of the budget meetings, capital planning, as well as operational budget, and really working with the department heads. I was their usual person working through issues like, do we need this? Is it better to have this or to this? And like where, documentation for various things. So I was definitely involved in the hands-on back and forth of the budget. I do, I should be honest with you that I know there are plenty of people who are more well-versed than me in municipal finance, but I'm certainly in it. And I think it's so important to have a strong finance team. So that's something in my mind that, coming to Wenham, I do, I've heard very good things about your finance team. And in fact, I know your new treasurer collector, and she and I have worked together and have a great working relationship. So it's important to me to have a good finance team in place that can tell me things that I don't necessarily know. I'm always happy to like do all my research and figure out what I can. But I know I love having expertise, whether it's in-house or if you need to consult someone outside to get through that process. So I was heavily involved with personnel costs, things like that, and the inner workings. And Middleton did have a really strong budget process that and there were times when we had to make hard decisions. But I learned a lot from my boss, Andy Sheehan. Shout out to Andy, that he certainly did teach me a lot. And we had a strong finance team there as well, which was terrific. So I hope that answered your question, Gary.
Thank you.
So Tanya, in most communities, there's a vocal minority that can impact operations and potentially the morale of departments or individuals. How do you deal with this vocal minority?
Oh, I wish I had the silver bullet for that, but I think that is every community I've worked with. Absolutely, that's true. That's just a truism. But the first thing I like to do is take a step back and remember that these are our constituents as well. Oftentimes what people want to do is be heard. And so that's easy and that's important right off the bat. And other times they just, they need to know the truth and they need to know why, right? So it's easy to say, oh, we don't do that, right? But it's worth taking the time to say, oh, we don't do that because of this. And really giving them a true explanation as to either why we're not doing that or why we can't or why things are happening a certain way and not that way. And so those are the first things that come to mind that, you hope that those work, that actually being honest with them, being straightforward, listening can help get to where you want to go. And sometimes you listen and you find out, oh, maybe there is something we can do here, or maybe they do have a good point. And so that's why it's always good to take that step back and listen to someone and see if there is something there, some compromise, some work you can do together. But at the end of the day, we know everyone's not always going to agree. And sometimes, that is why, we have elections and we have, the decision-making happens the way it does. And at the end of the day, sometimes you have to just move on. And this is what's been decided. This is what's been decided by this group of people or this majority. And then I think it's important, if that's affecting staff, to really check in with them and do some similar work with them to see what they're hearing, see if people are being belligerent to them, because, I think, as I mentioned earlier, I don't find that acceptable at all for the staff. And then to see, maybe what can be done from that perspective. Make sure, I'd be checking in with them to make sure that that they're okay and that they feel that they're being heard and recognized, and see if they've got ideas for how to improve the relationships with those constituents. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have several, but I'm going to try to think of the one that's maybe the most interesting questions. So I know that you have some questions about select board town administrator relationship, and I think we can get to that at the end. This relates to that a little bit. So we have a 3-member select board, and we generally have a pretty good consensus, but we do have differences of opinion. How would you handle a situation as a town administrator in which you disagreed with the path management was taking or a particular decision that management had made?
Sure. I mean, well, hopefully we would agree with each other all the time, 100%.
Of course.
That would be wonderful. But I'm my own person. And of course I got thoughts going on in here. I will say that, I absolutely would be respectful of the select board unless it was something egregious that just shocked my conscience, which I hope would not be the case. But I know reasonable minds differ, and I like to get my activism out in Salem, right? So my advocation, I love bike lanes, I love things like that. I'm doing a lot of work on that type of, and in my personal life in Salem, nothing too crazy. But at the end of the day, the select board is the select board, minus some especially egregious issues. That's the direction the town has decided to take, and it's my job to to put that forward, to put it into operation. So but of course, if I knew something that I thought was relevant to the conversation, if there was background, if there were studies, if there was, experts out there, et cetera, that I felt was relevant to the conversation, I would, want to make sure I included that to the extent I could, in case that was just something that the select board didn't know about, and might change their mind. So, and that's I think how I would approach it. But I would hope that we'd have a collegial enough relationship that, at times we can agree to disagree and move on, and pretty much I'm going to keep that to myself, unless someone wants to come talk to me at some point in time. But for the most part, I would really want to have a collegial relationship with the board, and then put that into practice on the day to day. So.
Okay, great, thanks. We have a couple of more minutes if we had any more questions for Tanya, or Gary, do you have anything more that you'd like to ask?
I would just ask just a quick one. I see from your resume that you've done a lot of work with fire departments. What's your experience with DPW and police?
Sure. I was involved in Middleton on a daily basis with fire and police, and I have done some work. I've probably done more fire department work in my consulting work than anything, but certainly some police work. I worked with the Everett Police Department when this was before the casino was coming in, so they were trying to figure out, whether they'd need additional officers or what factors to consider. So I did some work there, but really on a smaller town basis. Middleton was, I had a great working relationship with our chief when we were there. Everything from firing or mostly hiring, not firing, mostly hiring and operations. So that was something, I think he felt comfortable coming to me to discuss. I did worked on their union contracts. The union contracts were a mess when I started in Middleton, so did a lot of work on getting their union contracts put together. DPW the same. I haven't done as much in detail work with DPWs, but right now, for instance, I'm working in Fitchburg. I'm doing an organizational study in Fitchburg, so I've been spending the past few weeks doing all sorts of interviews with their whole DPW department. And, so I know a lot about the challenges of hiring right now, the challenges, some of the operational challenges that they're facing. So I'm certainly comfortable working with DPW, but they're the experts in that and not me. So I think it's important to know enough to know what questions to ask. But I also do, I like trusting the experts to do their job.
Thank you.
And do you have any further questions?
I don't right now. No, thank you.
Okay. So Tanya, you mentioned you had some questions for us. We've got a few minutes.
Yeah, no, I love you taking the time to take my questions, because obviously of utmost importance would be a good fit here, right? I know that that's what you want in Wenham, and obviously that's what I want in my life as well. So I'd love to know, and this is, I guess, to any of you that would want to answer this, the type of working relationship that you would like to have with your next town administrator. So if you could talk about that generally, that would be great.
Okay, who wants to start on that one? Gary always will start. Yes, Gary?
Let Diane go first.
Or Diane, I'm sorry, Diane.
Oh, no, I said Gary. Oh, man.
Oh, I thought you said Gary. That's what I
said. What type of relationship am I personally looking forward to with our new town administrator would be, I like that word you use, collegial, honest, to be able to go back and forth on different issues, explain different aspects of issues that I might not understand as an elected official, with not as much professional municipal experience, and just be able to go back and forth and understand that we're not always going to agree, but be able to speak about it honestly.
Great. Thanks, Diane. Gary.
Yeah, so I think, as you know, there's been a bit of a turbulent time in Wenham recently. So I think we're looking for someone that could really come in and be the team leader for the staff, which is excellent. A couple more positions to fill out, but I think we'll be looking for a working relationship together with the select board and the town administrator to address several issues that are coming down the line. You know, the MBTA commuter rail question, ARPA, and so forth. So I would look to really get into the details on single item projects.
So from my perspective, it's a kind of a complex relationship, only because there are 3 select board members in Wenham, and I don't know how many there are in Middleton, but having 5, yeah. Yep. So having 3 creates a bit of a challenge because none of us can speak to one of the other select board members without breaking the open meeting law. So the town administrator has sort of a unique role to, not repeat what, not serial communications, person. But yep. You're right. But to kind of just get a sense of where people are and be able to make recommendations. I think we're pretty, a pretty collegial town in general. We're a small town. We all sort of know each other. And I think it's really important to be able to, for a select board member to sit down with the TA and say, hey, this is what's on my mind today, or vice versa. Let's talk about that. So I think I'm personally a bit of a relationship person. So I think it's important to have a good relationship with the TA. On the other hand, I think it's important for us and for the select board and the TA to recognize our own responsibilities. The TA is the operational manager of the town, and the select board does not have any day-to-day, sort of operational responsibility. We don't, hire DPW folks, et cetera. But that where that crosses or where that intersects or overlaps is important. So I think, I think there's always an opportunity to ask, well, whose job is this anyway? And we're redoing a job description right now, redoing it, updating it, so that everybody has a good understanding of what everybody's job is. And that's not, not always an easy thing, but yeah, I think it's really just understanding, respecting, being collegial. We do look to our town administration for recommendations on many, many, many things. This is a professional manager, our town administrator, and we are elected officials who represent, face directly the constituents. But we do generally look for a recommendation and value that kind of input. So that's what I think about that.
Thanks, Catherine.
Other questions you have? Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to know what you think the biggest challenges are going to be for your next town administrator.
Go ahead, Gary or Diane.
I think there's always the continuing one of fitting the budget against the requirements that certain items are continually to exceed the 2.5% cap as far as insurance and healthcare and stuff, and yet still on the other side, providing the same level of services to the community. That's, I think, the biggest challenge we have going forward.
Yeah.
And you're going to solve all those, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know how to put like 50 pounds into a 5-pound bag. Is that the same?
Right.
Yeah, good. That's a key thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So other big challenges, I think, will probably be filling out the staff, hiring, and make sure the small staff that we always have is at least complete, and getting everybody to move forward that way. It's a first job.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd love to sorry, Catherine, go
ahead. Go ahead.
I just love for you to expand on that, like where, the current openings and where you are there, how many key positions do you think are vacant right now? And I know some people have some longevity, but there's some newer people, and that's so okay.
It's kind of ironic because I think that the one position that's probably the most key position that we are missing right now, we're missing because that person moved to Middleton.
I know. I know this is like some weird musical chairs thing. So yeah.
So when it comes to, so we have a very strong, the people that are here are very strong. So we have a strong finance department. We have a strong DPW, and I'm going to forget somebody, and I don't mean to. Police, fire departments, police, fire, all very, very strong. We have a strong land use department. All of that. We have some joint services departments, which give us strength as a small community. So inspectional services, schools,
rec library,
a few other things, right? So we gain our strength as a small town by joining with others. But the position that is open, that we purposely have left open, I think, because it requires the input of a permanent town administrator, is a person that has had this person's had several different titles, but director of administrative services. And that's really kind of a very important but catch-all kind of job, who is sort of the second line, town administrator who has lots of different experiences or has their hands in lots of different operations. Someone who would help out with town meeting, would help out with annual reports, would help out with some staffing things.
Whatever needs to get done. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And we honestly, I think we need a stronger HR presence than we have. So I think the staff is here, but some of it is new. And I think someone said a leader who can gel staff together to fill the one or two positions that are key, but can really bring some stability and forward momentum and support to the staff that we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's my comment on
that. That makes sense. That's an interesting job then, in terms of, it probably depends on the qualities of the person you bring in for your town administrator too, what might balance that out. So right. I mean, it's exciting to have that open, but also a little bit, it's a challenge in the sense that, okay, who knows just where everything is or how things have been done. So I think, what that says to me, Catherine, is that, probably the board and the staff, your new town administrator, just need a lot of patience with each other to work through things, to figure out even how things have been done, to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks and is moving. Things are moving forward. So yeah, that makes sense to me.
Okay, so we have just a couple of minutes. So we'd love to give you an opportunity to just make any kind of closing statement or remark or comment that you'd like, Tanya. And I'll tell you before we do that, so I don't forget, just a little bit about where we're going from here. As we're interviewing all of our finalists today. We have a town meeting in a couple of weeks, so and we've had this position open for a little while. So we're doing our interviews. We hope to be able to have some meetings with department heads so that our finalists can actually meet some of the department heads, maybe even face to face. And we're hoping that middle of next week sometime, we'll be able to deliberate and appoint a new permanent town administrator, of course, contingent on, background checks and negotiations and things like that. And then also, of course, there's everyone, depending on who's chosen, will have a different time frame of when they would be able. Everyone has commitments to their life or present jobs, so the actual start date, I think, would depend a little bit on each individual, the individual that's chosen. But we'll keep you in touch. We'll keep in touch throughout the process. Everyone will likely hear something, something next week. It's one of those processes that seems like it takes forever at the beginning, and you're collecting candidates week after week after week after week. And then we've had a great interim town administrator who has helped us a lot, who's actually been our consultant on this search and has brought us, really good finalists. But then everything happened so quickly at the end. So I just wanted to let you know what that process was, and I'll let you speak for a couple of minutes if you will.
Great, thank you, Karen. And also thanks to Tom, who you were just referring to, who has been very helpful throughout this process. So, so thank you to him. First of all, it's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you so much for this opportunity for me to come here and talk to you and be in the running. It really is flattering. So thank you. I really welcome this opportunity. I feel like I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. There's dozens and dozens of questions I have, but I'll save that for when and if that's appropriate. So thank you for your time in that regard. I am taking this opportunity very seriously, and I love the fact that this is a small town in the vein of one that I've had experience in. It's a town that I feel a connection to by being so close to. It's beautiful. Come on, Wenham is beautiful. It's just really an opportunity to work with new people, at least someone that I know as well, and work with a board that does seem, I'll say, I don't know you all well right now, but it does seem, it's really heartening to see that, you've got this cohesion, you've got, at least you've got a vision for what you want here. And I would love the opportunity to get to know you better. So thank you again. It's been a pleasure to meet all of you. And if you need anything from me, you know where to reach me. Tom knows where to reach me. And I'd love to, I'm looking forward to being in touch here.
Great. Thank you very much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. We're going to sign off for a little while and then come back on later. But thank you, Tanya.
Great. Pleasure to meet all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya.
So for the board, our next interview is at 3. I'm right, making sure I'm right about this. You know how I am. So we have a little bit longer recess, but it will be a recess. We'll keep the meeting running with a recess sign. And if we can sign back on just a little bit before 3, we have one more person to interview. I guess we do have a couple of minutes not to deliberate, but if there's anything procedurally we wanted to talk about, we have a minute or two that we can do that now before, well, we have a long time actually, but if there's something procedurally that we'd like to change or something anyone notices, now's the time.
Do we have those department head meet and greets or interviews set up for Monday?
I don't know if they're actually set up, but Tom has said between Monday and Tuesday, and that he would have feedback for us. I'm not sure what form that will look like. One recommendation or recommendations from everybody, but that he would have that to us, assuming that we have a meeting on Wednesday night.
Sounds good.
And we've been showing on the screen, and I should say it again, that we're very interested in community input, from the public. So we've been showing everybody's email addresses so they make sure they get Diane's correct. And we're happy to take any emails from folks that have input on anybody. So that's it all. I think we've got it covered. Okay, so we are free to leave and come back a couple minutes before 3 for our last candidate. Is that good?
Sounds good.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. See you in a little.